Hey, back at you guys. We've organized our mixer. We've bounced some of our dynamic tracks down to audio so we can see everything all tight. We've taken the last couple listens to make sure everything feels good, where everything's in place, and now it's time to move into the more exciting parts of mixing, which is still in the kind of preparing to mix category, but we're going to be looking at effects processing. Generally, we've probably learned this in previous sessions at Slam Academy, but there's a little bit of a theory around effects processing and the general order you put things in. Those rules are all meant to be broken. But definitely when it comes to mixing, it's nice to have a nice solid workflow around effects processing, and it usually starts with EQ. So for this video, we're going to talk about EQ techniques and some standard great practices for, in particular, shaping your frequency spectrum for each sound. So not only are they as clear and loud as they can be and sounding tasty, but that they're fitting together, kind of like puzzle pieces. So this brings me back to the mixer over here. When I hit tab and look at the session view and even look at my spectral view here too, this is also really nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my arrangement. Maybe we'll bring us in the drop here, this last drop. And I'll do a little scaling of the screen so we can see the mixer, and I'll start applying effects to my tracks, in particular EQ for this video. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and loop this section because I feel like I want to work on the drums a little bit, so I highlight that and hit Command L. Let's take a look at this drum rack. So now I can just go ahead and grab an EQ by hitting Command F and arrowing down. And you'll notice my default EQ already has the first node as the only one turned on, and it's set around 33 Hertz. That's just under low E, pretty much the lowest note anyone's going to hit. Sometimes for drums I'll open that up a tiny bit, but you can see where the spectrum is. So I got pretty much everything I need to worry about there. I've cut some unnecessary low end, which is going to be highly effective. And then I might even add a node here that's a bell node, and just boost it a little and surf around. See if there's anything that's kind of unwanted or not tasty. I think these drums sound pretty good overall, so I'm just going to kind of leave that. And notice this first practice I did was I cut the bass, and then I grab a narrow bell, and I boost it and surf around and listen for something I don't like. Let's do this with the drums too. So I go to my drum bus, grab an EQ8, throw it on there, roll off that sub, usually right around 30 Hertz. And I can look and see if anything's too loud or too quiet, and I can even see on the spectrum. That closed hi-hat is pretty darn loud. Look at how that thing is way up there and nice and bright. I could, of course, maybe apply like a high shelf EQ now, and I can put this way up there and just tame that a tiny bit. I also can, of course, go into the sub mixer here. Maybe give this just a tiny bit of decrease in the volume there too. We're going to be able to balance out those things anyway, but we're saving a step later by just giving that a little trim. Nice. Try another little boost, surfing around. I think that 9K, 10K is a little hot for my taste, so I'm going to push that down just a touch and make that guy nice and narrow. Kind of looking for the yucky spot, and if I want to hear what I'm really cutting, I can hit this solo isolate. Listen to that kind of metallic ring. That's a little much for me, so that solo, that band isolate mode is really nice for balancing things out. Let's move on to our bass. Oh, bass audio. Looks like there's no bass in this section, so let's go ahead. Well, there should be. Let's take a look. Bass audio. Oh, you know what? I misnamed this. This is just bass. Fold that up, and then this guy is the bass audio. I was like, what's going on with that? This is the one we really want to check our levels on here. Let's go ahead and check that out. Grab the EQ. Follow those same steps. Cut the bass. Anything below what you don't need. You can see there's a really low note. Snug right up against it. I got a subharmonic in there that might be kind of nice. Generally, the more decibels you can cut down here in the low end, the louder the whole track is going to be able to be. Because I can see where the notes are. They're generally in kind of the 1 octave, which is pretty high for a bass. So it's mostly kind of a pokey bass that's happening, not a lot of sub bass in it. So I think I'll leave some of that, but attenuate a large amount of it. Now we can do that surfing around. I'll make my cue nice and narrow. I'll boost and surf around. Now if I find something I like, I can turn it up a little, but for the most part, this stage is all about making cuts. I like all this stuff. This is all tasty to my ears, so, you know, when in doubt, don't boost anything. Just do the cuts, starting with cutting the bass. Let's try our melodic stuff. You can see why it makes sense to have that EQ defaulted to have the first note in high pass mode. You can configure that by just putting this into high pass, put it around 30 Hertz, and right click and save as default preset. But now look, I've got frequency information down here that's not doing me any good, quite a bit of it. So I just look for the lowest note. Dun, dun. I can get right up next to that, and that's saving me headroom, and the whole song is getting louder every time I'm able to do that. These are nice narrow little peaks. Probably not a lot of tweaking I need to do on the EQ yet, just mostly cutting the low end. Let's look at our harmony bus and do the same thing. Listening for the lowest note. Nice. Everything seems nicely sloped downward. A nice pro tip is generally the low frequencies should be the loudest part, and it should slope gently downward. Now, if everything was exactly like that, music would be very stale and boring sounding. You need little pokes, that's the exciting part. But if you did hear something, you know, that's felt a little undesirable, you might look for where those tall peaks are and surf around, and those might be the frequencies you don't want. Like this guy maybe has some of that. This is our resampled effects bus. Let's listen to this now. See, this guy's looking a little loud. You got some metallic stuff up there. Let's surf around and listen. Boost it. You can even put that solo isolate on right away and surf around. Listen to that. Metal. So I can take note. That's 3.6K. Another one there around 2K. Let's go up to that 2K. Definitely one there too. And this whole area, I'm just going to give that a little smoothing out. And I might do the 3.6K as well. Right there. So you can let go, and now you can just grab the gain and just attenuate it. You can make it really narrow, and if you decide it's a frequency you completely want to kill, you can go to this notch mode. It's like a band kill. That's just going to totally hack it out of there. Usually avoid using those if possible. Depends on how serious I am about doing cuts. In this case, there's a whole bunch of frequencies up there I kind of want to tame. So I think I might even put one just a little bit higher than that. You know, the more we do these subtle cuts, the more we're going to be able to turn the sound up in the long run. So a general rule here too is that the further you cut deep as far as amplitude, the narrower you want the band to be. If you're going to have a wider cut, just do gentle amounts to kind of smooth it out. This technique is called ringing it out. So we cut the bass and we rung it out. We did that. You notice how much time that saved. If we would have done that to all of our individual tracks, sometimes that's necessary, but in this case, we're just doing it to the mix buses. If you still need to get more tight results, you can open up the group and go to the individual tracks and further ring out individual channels. So now that I've got them all kind of just on a surface level, cut for the bass, and kind of wrung out a little bit to make them sound good on their own, this is when it makes a lot of sense to check out your spectrum now, and to go through and solo things again. Let's make sure we're right in a loud part of the track. Let's go over here, actually, to this section. More synths and stuff, and I can look at my slope. I can even hit stop and look at the shadow of the song. This is a really cool chance to do this and make this nice and big. And this is a good chance to remember the kind of the pink noise slope. It's just kind of a theory of mixing that basically you want to have a general kind of even slope downward without any big ramps or spikes on its way down. Even this stuff over here, that's kind of going to be a little bit of a, it's a sign that maybe things are a tiny bit too bright. You don't want to live and die by this rule because, again, this is where the character lives in the sound. You want to be careful about being too heavy-handed. But if it's like a big ski launch ramp coming down, that's usually a sign that maybe whatever sound that is could be attenuated a tiny bit. Now we have a couple of options for smoothing that hi-hat out. I think I'm just going to head up above 10K, and this is a good chance for us to recall our frequency ranges and what they really mean. Obviously, this is our sub bass and our kind of low mids, or the kind of the mid-range bass stuff, and then all of our melodies and harmonies live in the middle, and most of our textures and ambiences are up top. Now, way up above 10K, it's pretty subtle as far as what we're really doing. So sometimes you can really kind of hack those down, and it doesn't really hurt the overall signal too much. There, now we've controlled that a little more. Let's make it big and really look. And look at our shadow now. So this has been EQ workflows. We did 2 or 3 different workflows with EQs. First of all, cutting the bass on everything, and then looking and ringing stuff out. And then the last stage is looking at the spectrum on the master and trying to kind of establish a nice even balance throughout all the sounds just by using our ears, but also having a little visual aid of this slope and soloing individual tracks on the mixer, you know, so we can actually really see and hear what voices are populating which part of the spectrum on the master. So this has all been EQing and preparing to do the mix down. So thanks for joining me on this journey.